Reading 89 from the Psychological Commentaries on the Teaching of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky by Dr. Maurice Nicoll. Quarmid Ugle, August 11, 1945. Man's Situation on the Earth. It is sometimes said in the work that the most powerful force that we can make in ourselves is understanding. On one occasion at the beginning of this war, Mr. Ouspensky was asked what view should be taken, how one should think about it. He said, in so many words, that we must try to understand why all these things happened. Now there is very little understanding in life, and it has often seemed to me that understanding is diminishing. But when Mr. Ouspensky said that we must try to understand, he meant, of course, that we must apply the knowledge and teaching of this work to the present situation and try to understand why things go as they do. In order to do this, one must have a certain power of reflection, a certain detachment from external things. The work teaches that we are very far down in the scale of being, and exist on a planet which is under 48 orders of laws, and that we are removed by only one place from the very lowest level of the universe, which is that level called the moon, which is under 96 orders of laws. It is necessary to reflect on what this means and to connect in one's mind. We exist in a world which is obviously far from perfect, and the work teaches that we exist on this planet because we ourselves cannot exist on a better one. Our average level of being, the kind of people we are, is such that we could not possibly exist in a better world. Yet, the work teaches that there are better worlds, and it says the interesting thing that a better world is under fewer laws, and a worse world is under more laws. This means that in a better world we are less imprisoned, and in a worse world we are more imprisoned. At present, we are in a world under 48 orders of laws, that is, a prison in which 48 orders of laws exist from which we cannot escape, and whatever we do in trying to change our world in an external way, as for example by means of science, we shall still be under these 48 orders of laws. The work teaches that the only way to get to a better place in the universe is through self-change. But since we all, owing to the power of the senses over us, see improvement as lying only in change in external conditions, we miss the point. Let us review for a moment the present state of the world and the present ideals that dominate people in regard to making this planet a better world. You see on one side inventions such as penicillin, and many other similar things which are of benefit to mankind. And on the other hand, you see the inventions of destructive agents, such as poison gas, atomic bombs, and so on. For everything that is invented of a beneficial nature, there seems to be invented an opposite of a harmful nature. Man, feeling that he can do, does not see this continual contradiction. He does not see that he is living in a world under a definite number of laws that cannot be changed. It is as if there were always the same amount of everything, and if a thing is got rid of in one place, it appears again in another place. There is always the same amount of air, let us say, in an air cushion. You may push it in one place, but it will swell out in another place. This idea that we live in a contained world of this kind, a prison under a definite number of laws, is not understood. The work says, amongst other things, that the earth is a pain factory from which a certain quantity of pain and suffering is demanded. People believe that medicine is going to do away with illness, but what happens actually is that if a relative cure for one thing is found, you will practically always find that some other illness increases. Let us suppose that smallpox as a disease has been decreased by vaccination, but cancer has increased. I am not making any definite connection between these two things, but simply indicating in general what happens. Can you mention a single law that you are under? I am not talking about man-made laws, but about laws belonging to this earth on which we appear for a brief period. One of these laws is that you have to eat. If you don't eat, you die. This is a law. Another law is that you have to breathe oxygen. If you do not breathe oxygen, or if you breathe carbon monoxide from a charcoal stove, you die. This is the law belonging to this planet. Yet, curiously enough, we do not see ourselves as being under laws of this kind, and imagine ourselves as being quite free and able to do exactly as we like. In other words, we do not reflect upon the nature of our lives on this earth. And we have the constant illusion that we can alter everything in our favor. And because we have this illusion that we can do, we have also the equally firm illusion that we are progressing, and that the mere passage of time means that we all get better and more comfortable. We regard things like wars as exceptions, just as we regard illnesses as exceptions, not seeing that they are the rule and belong to our level of being. What is the way out from this prison in which these laws constantly interact and play on humanity like a set of different colored spotlights? The work, the Gospels, and all esoteric teachings say the same thing. To begin to escape from these 48 orders of laws governing this planetary prison called the Earth, a man must cease to see the final solution in changing external conditions, but must see it in changing himself. He must begin to change his relationship to this world, and in order to do so, he must begin to observe himself and the world and work on his mechanical reactions to it. This is the whole meaning of the Sermon on the Mount, which has nothing to do with being pious, but has a far deeper meaning and a far more interesting meaning. If a man remains mechanical, if he always thinks and feels and speaks in the same mechanical way, he remains in prison. But if a man begins to try to awaken, he begins to pass under fewer laws. Everything taught in this work about negative emotions, identifying, internal considering, self-remembering, about vanity and pride, about making accounts, about imagination, about false personality, and so on, has to do with coming under fewer laws, that is, under better influences, and all these things that the work is constantly talking to you about and asking you to practice. Begin with observing yourself, with waking up from the state of sleep in which you are merely functions of life and merely serve nature and have no inner hope, no inner stability, no inner peace of mind. In this great prison of the world, under these 48 orders of laws, mankind as a whole is asleep. The work, the Gospels, and all esoteric teaching seek to awaken man out of this state of sleep. The central idea is that man can undergo a definite change, a definite transformation, if he will work on himself aright. This is called inner change or inner development, and it is a quite definite thing that you can become aware of yourself once it has begun to touch you. Then, instead of remaining acorns which swine can eat, you begin to grow into trees which no swine can eat. What would completely change the world at this moment? The world would change completely if everyone had goodwill. The world would change completely if everyone had goodwill. Such an idea is vaguely mentioned even by politicians. Do you know what it means to have goodwill? You may imagine that you have goodwill. Now suppose that you begin to observe yourself and your daily actions. Suppose that you begin to become responsible to yourself for your inner thoughts and what you say secretly. Can you any longer have the illusion that you have goodwill? You will begin to see what an immense task it is to get free from these evil places in mind and feeling. Then you will begin to understand what this work is about, and you will also understand how impossible it is for humanity as a whole to change, since it is so difficult for you yourself to change in this respect. When such ideas come to us, we begin really to think. We begin to reflect and to want to understand. We begin to understand, for example, why things go as they do, and why no one can do anything. But it is always possible for some people to change who wish to do so, and wish to study how it is possible to change and what it means. As regards these orders of laws that I have mentioned briefly above in the cosmological teaching, the work says that the world is created from the absolute, that is, from the unconditioned, from that which is under no laws. The first and highest level of creation is produced by the three forces of the Trinity: active, passive, and neutralizing forces. This first order of creation is under three laws, or a trinity of forces. The second order of creation is under three laws and three of its own, that is, 6 orders of laws. This process proceeds downwards to every level of creation. Our world is very low down and is under 48 orders of laws, but this will be explained in great detail later. To speak roughly, the Earth is under the laws of the solar system. The solar system is under the laws of the Milky Way, or starry galaxy. The galaxy is under the laws of all the galaxies, and so on, just as in any organ in life, such as the army. A private soldier is under more laws than a non-commissioned officer, and he is under more laws than the colonel, and the colonel is under more laws than the general, and so on. This is called order, or scale, and the work takes the universe as an order, or scale. In this order, or scale, our Earth comes very low down, and our moon is at the lowest level. This must be understood not only physically and literally, but also psychologically.